the halving is literally right around the corner. And in this video, we're going to talk about how the top 5 Bitcoin miners are not selling as we approach the halving. We're also going to talk about a zone that Bitcoin has to clear to then go on a nice rally. And we're going to look at a few Bitcoin miners, as well as the progress of BlackRock's ETF flipping Grayscales ETF. They are getting closer. So if you guys get some use out of this video, make sure you like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and let's get started. First off is Bitcoin, and I gave you guys a few previous levels to watch out for. We are getting very close to that 59,000. Now, if we were to break this 59,000 area, I do think the next level is going to be this roughly 56.5, 57 area where we consolidated before we ran again. I do think this area will be another potential level to watch out for on the downside if Bitcoin does break down further. And if this level breaks, there is a potential that we head to $53,000. On the upside, I'm watching for us to break this 61,005, hoping that this support doesn't flip as a resistance. But zoom out a bit and you'll see that Bitcoin is still very bullish. This bull cycle is far from over. And when we go on these big runs where it's almost nothing but up, there is going to be consolidation along the way. Right now with Bitcoin, we are approaching oversold on certain time frames. The 4 hour has been flirting with oversold. The RSI on the 1 hour is also oversold. And the RSI on the daily was quite overbought, was due to cool down. We have cooled down sufficiently. Now it's up to the market to decide, do we want to start pushing to some higher levels, or is this retrace going to continue? I also want to talk about this article that's going over how the top 5 Bitcoin miners are not selling their Bitcoin as we approach the halving. And Bitcoin selling by the top 5 mining firms has slowed to a 2-year low in the first quarter of 2024, where the 5 largest miners only sold a total of 2,000 Bitcoin. And the last time these 5 mining firms sold less than 2,000 Bitcoin was in the first quarter of 2022. Here's something interesting about that. The first quarter of 2022, that was basically the beginning of Bitcoin's crash. These miners would have been better off selling that coin. One miner that I know was selling during this time was CleanSpark. They weren't scared to take profits. They weren't scared to utilize that Bitcoin towards further growth at that time, when it was pretty clear that the bear market was beginning. Other miners, it was their detriment to hold, and other miners did fall behind because of it. I won't name names, but you can figure it out pretty easily in my opinion. And then here's a nice graph of the Bitcoin mined versus the Bitcoin sold. You can see that the Bitcoin sold is now near levels like they said at the beginning of 2022. Now look at this Bitcoin miner revenue. Their revenue is near all-time highs. And here's an interesting quote from the CEO of Archeron Trading. In dollar terms, it's not obvious that miners will be worse off after the halving. The decrease in mining rewards is going to be compensated by an increase in network fees. And look at the total miner revenue. You will see that there is a decrease 1 month after halving. This is obvious. From the 1 month before the halving to the 1 month after, it's obvious that they're going to take a pretty sharp revenue drop. However, look at after the halving, why this is such a positive catalyst overall for the Bitcoin miners. 1 year after the halving, their revenue has always at least doubled. In the 2016 halving, it more than doubled. In the 2012 halving, it went on a 4,000% increase. In the 2020 halving, nearly a 300% increase. The Bitcoin halving is overall a positive for the Bitcoin miners. Bitcoin's price will make up for the fact that these miners are taking half the rewards. Now I want to show you something interesting, the Bitcoin production by the top 5 miners. You'll see in this last quarter, this is that greenish bluish line here. Production wise, CleanSpark's at an all-time high. Marathon's down quarter over quarter on their Bitcoin production. Bitfarms is down, Cypher is down, Riot is down, whereas CleanSpark is actually up on their Bitcoin mining quarter over quarter. One reason this is because they did recently increase their hash rate by quite a lot. I think that would obviously explain it. Here's something interesting. Bitcoin miners worldwide currently hold over 700,000 Bitcoin, which accounts for 3.4% of the total Bitcoin supply. Pretty soon, the spot Bitcoin ETFs just from the US alone, they're going to have more Bitcoin than these Bitcoin miners. They're not that far off. And actually, if you include GBTC, they are above this 700,000 Bitcoin. I definitely agree with that article. I think the Bitcoin miners are in a much better place now than they were in any other halving. Last halving cycle, we did not see Bitcoin miners posting profits before the halving came along. Far from it. And in the last Bitcoin cycle, we actually didn't see any profitable Bitcoin miners until the very tail end of the cycle. When Bitcoin was already retreating, they were posting quarters that were reporting profitability, but Bitcoin was already dropping after that point. This time around, I expect the miners to flip to profitability much before Bitcoin hits its peak in this cycle. And a sign of that is seeing that some are already profitable before we even had the halving. We also have this article talking about Bitcoin needing to clear a 57,000 liquidity zone for a post-halving rally. And according to CoinGlass, there are piles of long liquidation pools of about 2.2 billion at the 57,000 zone, which smart money needs to clear and at the same time reaccumulate for a post-halving rally. Now there's a little more interesting stuff in that article. I will leave it down below for you. And next up, let's look at the progress with BlackRock's IBIT and Grayscale's GBTC. IBIT is now sitting at 17,100 million in net assets. GBTC is now sitting at 19,446 million. They're now only about 2.3 billion from flipping. Only roughly a week ago, they were at 3 billion. We are looking at a matter of days until they're right around 1 billion from flipping. Sometime in May, I do suspect we're going to see this flip. And another thing that's exciting coming up in May is a lot of the Bitcoin miners are going to be reporting earnings. And this is a quarter that many expect profitability. This is a quarter where Bitcoin went from $40,000 to $70,000. And for context, there were Bitcoin miners that were posting profits in the previous quarter at an average of about $35,000 Bitcoin. Cypher and CleanSpark being two of them. I do expect we'll see more Bitcoin miners posting a profit in this upcoming earnings. This could be a big catalyst for the Bitcoin miners as we get out of the halving, as the market tries to decide where to take the miners next. The miners can only be taken down for so long. A stock like BTBT, for example, is down nearly 70%. When Bitcoin inevitably rises throughout the rest of this year, these Bitcoin miners are going to see money flow back into them. In the end, these are all Bitcoin miners. When their underlying asset, Bitcoin, goes up in price, these miners will be profitable, and we'll be seeing higher and higher revenue as the quarters go on. I do think in time these will snap back to reality. Once we get past the halving, it's only a couple days away. Once we get past that and start seeing Bitcoin appreciate again in price, going back towards those all-time highs, the miners will see their rally. This is a great time to take advantage of them. Many miners like BIT Digital are oversold, quite oversold on the 4-hour there, getting towards oversold on the daily. And while right now they are for the most part in a downtrend, they may continue down a little bit more as we get to the halving, maybe even in the weeks after the halving. To me, these are the times to load up when there's a clear discount on the Bitcoin miners versus Bitcoin. The reality is these miners are still growing their revenue. The reality also is many of these miners expect a profitable quarter. This is something we haven't seen for many of these miners at all. And right now, Wall Street's trying to fear everybody out. Right now, Wall Street's trying to sell the miners off. When from a fundamental perspective, the miners are shaping out to be in an amazing position here as this bull run continues to kick off. This is going to be one of the halving cycles where we see very consistent profitability among the Bitcoin miners. I also want to talk about Iron stock. This is another one that's expecting profitability in the upcoming earnings. This is another one that's down nearly 60% from its top. If we continue pulling back for Iron, keep an eye on this ascending support. We have utilized it a few times. To me, these are the times to be loading up on your favorite Bitcoin miners when everyone's fearful, when everyone's worried that the Bitcoin halving is just going to wreck these miners. Well, let me break it to you like this. They're already down, in many cases, 60%, some cases 70%. And once this halving is behind us, I don't think the miners have a real reason to stay suppressed like this. Also, looking at CleanSpark, I'm following this descending channel. I'm watching for a shift in the trend. If we can break out of this descending channel, we can then go on and test these previous lower highs, see how we do. But you know, either we're going to keep following this descending channel and we're either going to bounce off of this broadening pattern that we've been in, or we're going to fail it and we're going to fill that gap. I personally don't think a fill of this gap is likely. I've been saying this. It's definitely possible, but where I'm at, I don't find it to be as likely as people think. To me, this is the opportunity here, buying into this pain, buying into this downtrend, knowing that overall we are in an uptrend. And we are seeing a bit of a divergence here with CleanSpark. The price is falling while the RSI is rising. We could be looking at a reversal pretty soon. With the halving so close, you know, these miners can only be suppressed for so long. It's definitely been a rough time, you know, but this is something we expected as we came up to the halving. The miners are going to price in the fact that they're taking half the rewards. Many are down 50%, 60%. I feel like they have been sufficiently taken down by Wall Street. And these are the opportunities to buy. This is a time that there's fear. This is clearly not a greedy time. Those greedy times will come again. Those euphoric times when everyone's asking, should I buy? When it's pushing new highs, when it's going to crazy overbought levels, we're not at that time yet. We're at that low level where everything's oversold and people are asking, should I sell and give up? Should I take my loss and buy into something else? In my opinion, the Bitcoin halving is a huge positive for the Bitcoin miners. While on the short term, they take half the rewards, on the long term, they get to enjoy Bitcoin's price appreciation, and its appreciation in price more than makes up for the fact they take half the rewards. Plus, this time around, we should see a lot of profitable Bitcoin miners. This is shaping up to be a very exciting Bitcoin cycle. Let me know your guys' thoughts down below. What are you buying today? These are the times to be a buyer in my opinion. Thanks as always, and I'll see you next time.